I might sound like a hypocrite when I say this because, like I say, sometimes some things just have to be addressed. And once again, I'm not Vlad TV. I'm not Rap Radar Podcast, Drink Champs, Brilliant Idiots. All these platforms that I respect and listen to. But at some point, I always say, we got to have some type of morals and self-respect for you know, our own platforms and our own content. You know, just the other day, Keefe D, who is a known Crip and associate of Suge Knight, apparently was just arrested for, they say, allegedly the murder of Tupac. Because, this guy, for those of you who know, has been doing interviews with the likes of Vlad. There was some other platforms. He made a book. He wrote a book, and no disrespect to Vlad, because people will call him, an informant or police and stuff. And it's like, I don't see him in that way. I think Vlad is one of those guys who asks those questions that can probably get people in trouble. But once again, him as an interviewer. He is, hey, I want to know, give some of these guys a platform and some type of I guess side. I mean, it's not the interviewer's fault, because again, Vlad isn't, he don't live a street code, so like he can ask the guest anything he wants. Now it's up to the guest if they want to answer or not. There's been many people that came on Vlad and refused to answer. And I'm sure there's a lot of interviews that he done with people that he didn't put out. I think it's just the fact that because of the line of questioning. But again, people have to keep this in mind too, is that, for someone to be involved and associated with or have something to do with some type of act of crime or violence, and they haven't even served their time for, they haven't paid their dues to society, or there hasn't been any repercussions for it. Sometimes it makes me think like, hey, you're really gonna go up here and really give this person a platform, because once again, you can just be telling the story. Because again, I say it all the time, the violence in music now, we are entertained by it. We enjoy it. We like it. I mean, there's a lot of artists that talks about, the crimes they committed, like, the thugs and the Dirks, and, even artists who have made it out of that life. 50 Cent, Jay-Z is just like T.I. But for someone who was involved in the murder of Tupac, and it's still, they done made so many documentaries, so many movies, so many, stories behind it, the murders of Tupac and Biggie. A lot of people believe that they know who it was. Like, with Biggie, they say it was the feds, and Tupac. A lot of people can believe it was, Suge or Diddy or even just a gang bang. But it's like, man, sometimes when I listen to these interviews, listen to these stories, it's kind of like, man, are they gathering enough evidence? Are you incriminating yourself? Are you really going to sit here and allow someone that you love or claim to love? Again, you're a fan. You can be a fan of an artist, but it's like, if you're in that hip hop space, Treach ain't gonna be sitting here interviewing Keefe D. He regardless of if he was regardless if he's not a podcast or not. The Outlaws isn't going to be sitting down with Keefe D. Snoop isn't going to be sitting down with Keefe D. Or any of the people who like involved in their murder, because it's like, again, there are certain codes that we live by, especially the street codes that they live by, and it's like, man, look, no, I'm not gonna, give this dude no type of platform to talk about it. And even with this whole instant, people gotta, people have to pay for the sins of what they do. And I'm not sitting here saying that people need to go to jail or go to prison for their crime they commit. I feel like God is always going to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And even when people is no longer in that life and they're just telling, telling a story, it just rubs me the wrong way, really. Like, again, I was like 9 when Pac died, like 10 when Biggie died. It's just certain things that I think about, and I feel like, hey, like what, like I say, we all have families, even criminals and people who are really just bad energy, bad people. They have families. Some people that love them. People. Everybody has children. I don't want to hold anyone accountable for what somebody else did, but at the same time, it's like, man, you were involved, and whether you're not the one who did it or not, it's like you're, like, I don't know, me personally, man, I just wouldn't. And maybe it's easier for me to say because I'm not, I didn't have that opportunity, or I'm not in that space. But it's something it's just something that doesn't sit right with me. That's why I say it's like, man, you have to be careful, mindful of what you do and what you put out there, right? Because again, like the universe knows more. God knows more than you do. And when I think about certain things, I think about how, we spend our time and money on trying to build something for ourselves, for our family, even for our communities, and then for it to be used and discredited because of everything else that it comes with. That's the way of life. But I think it's like, if you have a platform, like, a media platform, if you have a, entertainment platform, like there should be some morals in that. And again, I'm not saying that these guys are wrong for having someone that has been involved in such a crime, because again, criminals, like I said, we all have a past. Sometimes we don't get our fair trial. Sometimes we might not even be no longer in that life. But it's just one of those things where it's like, you have a guy who was actively involved in a murder of an artist, a man no less. That we love, or that you love, because again, not everybody is personally have a personal relationship with Tupac. So maybe again, that's another thing. It's not you don't have a personal relationship with the J Master J's and the Tupacs and the Biggies and all these unsolved murders. But I think there has been some speculations of who's been involved. But it's like, hey, we need to, like, speculation and allegedly is kind of like, hey, it's not set in stone. But again, there are certain people who know, regardless of whether it was a setup or not. It's kind of like if there's a bit of involvement, it makes me think about like, where's your mindset? I do interviews and have conversation with people. Um, if you look back at my some of my recent previous podcasts, prior podcast episodes, I had I have conversations and things with people. I mean, nothing incriminating or nothing negative, but I think for me, that's not the space that I'm in. I always want to hear another person's side of the story. I always like to say I can be devil's advocate, but at the same time, it just goes back again to like, hey, did you like the justice system sometimes can be a little awful. Like you wasn't involved, but you was there, you was a witness, and hey, what can you do? You wasn't the one that did it. And I mean, again, it's like nobody can get convicted for um not not being. They can't convict you if you wasn't actively the person. Like you can be a witness, you can be there, but I think whoever was in that car should have been, convicted for, accessory. Because again, but hey, that's just my opinion. But I always say, we reap what we sow. We get what we deserve, so that's what you get. So at the end of the day, me personally just feel like, hey man, here's a guy who was here's a guy who allegedly murdered a respected and beloved artist, a beloved man, son, whatnot, and he had got away with it for almost 30 years. Because that's the trick, right? You can tell a story and you can fabricate it, but because there's nobody else that knows, you can say whoever it was. But it's like, hey, you have, without incriminating yourself, without confessing that you were the guilty one, you will say it just wasn't me. That's kind of how other people do it. Same thing. Like I can even tell you even things in my job. That's why I always say, we get what we deserve. There's been instances where, hey, I can't tell somebody what they did if I didn't see them. Sometimes you might have a feeling because again that intuition's still there. Like sometimes God will reveal certain things to you and it's like you can't, like, because again, at the end of the day, there's still order and certain ways to go about things. But it's like you can ask somebody, hey, was you the last one I used the bathroom? And then they be like, nah. But it's like, did you see them go in there? Or even if you do see them go in there, like you can't prove it because it's like you didn't witness, you didn't have out witness, but you're not dumb. You can sometimes you have to use your common sense and use your logic and use, your inner tuition because sometimes it does tell you. But it's like that whole thing is like, guilty to prove it innocent. That should apply for certain things. But when it comes to like if everything's hearsay, all we have is allegation, speculation, opinions. And I think there should be some type of credit for that. But yeah, what I mean, time has went on. Like I said, it's been almost 30 years. And again, like I said, I don't wish death on anyone. I do feel like we all should, pay for the crime that we commit. Um, But again, it's not my place to be the one to punish anyone. So let the trials be what it is. And I think, especially in America, sometimes it cannot be good. And I think there's no statute of limitation for murder, but it's like I wasn't I wasn't as affected in the past and Biggie, Tupac. You know, it hit different when DMX passed because nobody murdered him. Even when Michael Jackson passed, there was certain speculation as far as like the doctor and all that stuff. Even like speculation with Prince and Whitney, there was some foul play there. But it's like it's different when it's a killing, a shooting, a murder, because it's like I was young. There are some people who have a personal relationship, with these guys, and it might affect them deeply. Like me as a fan, me as someone as a student of the game, it's like, hey, let's get some justice for these guys. But at the same time, it's like, what is that? What does that mean? Especially in a line of work, I guess. Like I say it all the time. I'm not the one when I says it though. Like is being a rapper is a dangerous game. Cause it's like at the end of the day, like I think Glass Malone said this one time on Breakfast Club. It's like, and in the streets, Tupac, hey, rapper or not, you just another nigga. You're just another nigga with money, but there's still those roads to the street, and that's the thing that people don't realize. There's still humane there. There's still humanity there. Same thing like with Nipsey Hussle. Like Nipsey Hussle was one of those ones where those of you who was familiar with his music, he was he made great music, but then there was just the man that he was, what he represented, regardless of whether he was a Crip himself, it wasn't, there's those who represents a lifestyle, but they're not the ones that are out here being criminal, because there's also a misconception of gangs. There's the violence, of course, but then there's also that security there, those family ties and stuff. It's just like with the mob. Like so I'm not a street dude. Despite my background and what I've been around, I never been out here, selling dope. I never been out here banging. I've been, I've been around that. I've seen things, but I didn't have no involvement in it at all, not firsthand. But you reap what you sow. So whatever this case comes to, I hope justice is served the right way. Like, this has been a long time coming. And I don't know the whole gist of the story, but it's like they said he was the one that murdered. And it's like you finally put two and two together. It's like, hey, how did you even, why? Like, this man had dropped some names, then he didn't want to drop names, but then it's like, all right. But yeah, like, people talking about, and I say this, and I'm going to say this again. You got guys like this, and allegedly guys like Thug, guys like Casanova, and then there's guys like Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, and Bill Cosby. There's those criminal. There's those like they're all in there on the criminal. They got a criminal charge. some more severe than others. Like I always say, no sin is greater than the other. But it's like you want the people who take lives to be free. You want people who deliberately take lives to free. What did Jay-Z say? You respect the guy who got shot. I respect the shooter. And again, I'm not saying that the R. Kellys and Harvey Weinstein don't deserve, the Bill Cosby don't deserve to be where they're at. But when you sit here and say that these people deserve to die and rot for life and to just go to hell, but yet people who take lives, you ain't getting that life back. Like I say again, from someone who dealt with certain traumas. It wasn't a trauma like this, but it's still like some people there is retribution or recovery from certain crimes against yourself, certain crimes against you. I'm sorry, but that is not to justify it. But my own thing is like we all need to keep the same energy for all. You do the crime, you do the time. It is what it is. I don't wish death on anybody. I do feel like we should be able to find some other type of way to like serve time if it's not going to be jail time. Because at the end of the day, I don't play about my kids. I don't play about my family. I don't play about my loved ones. So you do harm to them. I really don't know what I would do. Honestly, we would like to say what we would do, but we don't. I don't think any of us are that self-aware that at a moment's notice our reaction to something. Cause like I said, we all think, we all got we all have a voice. So I always say, I wouldn't want to put myself in a position or be in a position to where I would find out. But it goes back again to like, hey, me and my family, we had a conversation as far as like, hey, what we would do. My sister, I know she said if something like this happens, I want you to burn the city down. And I was like, I don't want violence to beget more violence, but that's what it is. Like if somebody does something to me and take my life, I will say it won't matter because I won't be here. But God forbid, I wouldn't want my family to avenge me. Because what good does it do? I wouldn't want them to do that. I wouldn't be here anymore. And they can risk their freedom and risk their families and the chances that they have. But it's like, I do, cry for me. Show the world, tell the world, the type of man that I was. I try my best to be a law-abiding citizen, upstanding citizen. Of course, despite all my flaws and disadvantages, me having credit doesn't mean I should deserve to be, dead. Doesn't mean I deserve to be locked up. There's been times where, and again, maybe for me, maybe certain things I've done is a crime. Oh, I didn't pay this bill. I signed a contract, I didn't pay this bill. So I'm pretty much, I owe this money. I didn't pay my taxes. I didn't file my taxes. Oh, that's a crime. It's like, yeah, okay, fine, fair enough. But there's repercussions for that. I think certain crimes doesn't shouldn't be justified for, jail. But I don't feel like there's any crime that justifies death. You take a life, maybe you should do life. There's privileges that we're given in this life, God given privileges. But at the same time, those God given privileges also can be synonymous with the freedom that we have outside, the choices that we have outside. But you can have your opinions on what the jail system is, the judge system is. We all have opinions. Like I said, we all think. But I just think about, what are we going to do now that we have someone so iconic, so influential to a culture? What are we going to do now that we have the person responsible for taking it? Because forget about, but again, at the same time, forget about the music. This was still a man. But I just had to, share, as far as like what I thought, as far as like the platforms that Keefe D was pretty much incriminating himself on. Because I think some people might have been introduced to him on Vlad. So I guess it's like, he started that, started it in some sense, maybe not, but that was my first time I've heard of him, and it's like, okay, now these other people want to kind of hear it, and I'm like, man, this dude, I already said, I ain't gotta repeat it, but you reap what you sow. So please, bless one, Joe, like, just be mindful, stay safe, stay prosperous, productive, and positive. I love y'all. I want us all to strive. I want us all to be better. And let this be, another lesson in the direction to, change your life. And don't be stupid. Don't incriminate yourself. If you're going to be a criminal, if you're going to sit here and do things, don't incriminate yourself. I'm not condoning no type of violence. I'm not condoning no type of crime, but you get, like I said, you have to be wise. You're going to get credit for being stupid, but you have to be smarter. Be smarter.